Sergey, you want to do the intro first?
Awesome, sure, yeah. Hey everyone, this is Sergey from Axelar. We're building an interoperability network, and yeah, excited to be here. And hey Josh, I guess good morning.
Good morning.
Awesome. Do you want
Yeah,
to take it off?
I can do a quick intro as well. Hi everyone. My name is Josh, co-founder of Keplr as well as Osmosis. And yeah, we just released a new update to Keplr, which has Axelar mainnet, and yeah, really excited to see this mainnet begin to roll out and support the network from Genesis, which I think is fairly rare. So yeah, excited to talk more about Axelar and what it enables, and yeah, the interchain in general.
Awesome, sounds great. I guess Josh, for our audience at the Axelar side, do you want to just briefly mention like what is Kepler, what is Chain Apsis, what are you guys working on, and kind of a what are the short-term goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So Chain Apsis is the company that's building Kepler, and then we also have team members working on Osmosis. So it's just more of a company. But I mean, Kepler wallet is the interchain wallet, right? So um, our entire team is just very bullish interchain from day one of us hearing about it, and we're building. We started off with the browser extension wallet, and now we have a mobile wallet. But our goal is to basically enable um, application-specific blockchains in the interchain to first of all, be able to provide their application services to users, and then for users to kind of on the other side use these applications, and for IBC to kind of tie everything together. And yeah, I think our role is just connecting developers and projects to users and vice versa.
Yeah, makes sense. And so I guess like right now, folks using IBC mostly for token transfers, right, across Cosmos chains. Do you have plans to roll out other features through Kepler, like more general message passing or other types of application requests?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think IBC is kind of. I mean, funnily enough, before we really even started getting into Kepler Wallet, this was all the way back in early 2020. Um, One of the first things that we started working on was this thing called interchain accounts, and I believe that is shipping in the either next or next version of Cosmos SDK. And it's one of the first use cases of IBC outside of just general token transfers, and I think it unlocks a lot of these like composability type of um, use cases in the interchain, and we're definitely excited for it. Um, Ultimately, I think for Kepler, our role is to kind of support the evolution of IBC as it adds more features, as it becomes more powerful, and for users always have access to the kind of latest and the greatest features that are rolled out in IBC as well. So.
Yeah, and you guys launched a mobile version, right, a couple months ago, or maybe it was more than that.
Yeah, I think I can't exactly remember the date. It just kind of like gone by with Lisbon and everything, but I think it's been about maybe about 4 months at this point, and right now we have, I believe, about 7 networks that are natively supported. We have about 60,000 users, I think, the last time I checked, for both iOS and Android. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think there's a pretty substantial population in the world where it's like, their primary access to the internet, is the mobile phone, and we want to make sure that they have access to the interchange just as much as someone with a MacBook or a desktop. So
So would you say the mobile is going to be the future, how most people interact with Kepler, or you think it's going to be still kind of the web wallet?
yeah, so I think it's like different target audiences, and for us, it's always Kepler's always been a very like application focused wallet, right? So it's like it's less so much about managing assets, although that's a critical part of it. I think our goal when we first started it is like uh, we think a wallet is more than just an asset management tool, and we know that like this whole crypto and Web3 space is going to evolve into something a lot greater than just DeFi and money and staking, right? Um, and then on the other side, um, I grew up in Indonesia, where I think for me, my first experience to the internet was on a computer, whereas I think there's people in Southeast Asia, in India, in Africa, where like their first experience to the internet was on the phone, and making sure that just because you don't have a computer, like you can't access DeFi is completely like contradictory to the goal of something that we're trying to build. And yeah, so our emphasis building mobile wallet will always just be let's unlock the ability to use interchain applications even on the phone just as easily as you would be able to on the desktop.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. And I guess I'm curious as you guys are, exploring the IBC and kind of, rolling out a lot of integrations with other chains through the IBC.
Mhm.
What is the feedback from the users as they're, using the IBC? Because I think there's still kind of it's new technology, right? Like, there's still like a concept of, channels and things like that or
Mhm.
paths. I'm curious, what's your take on kind of user feedback, and how do you try to make the user experience better and simpler?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we were the first wallet to really kind of support IBC at the average user level, and it's been kind of a process of like experimenting, iterating, making changes, and things like that. When we first rolled out IBC in Keplr, we kind of it was built to be a feature more for advanced users. So you need to know, which you'd have to set which channel you're sending to, and which chain you're sending to, and things like that. And obviously, from the average user's perspective, um, they don't know what the channel is. It took me for a while before I finally kind of understood. It's like, all right, this is what a channel is, this is what a packet is, and this is what you know um, client is. And our goal has just always been to abstract all of that. In the beginning of IBC rollout, I think Keplr wallet was kind of the only way you could do IBC transfers. But at the same time, there weren't that many use cases of IBC, right? At the time, we were seeing maybe 10 IBC transactions a day, just because there weren't any large scale applications using IBC. Now, all of that has changed. I think we're seeing, hundreds of thousands of IBC transactions happening every day. And the great part about that is, um, a lot of the abstraction of these like technicalities of what IBC is, how IBC works, has been kind of simplified for the average user. So, today you wouldn't even need to know what a channel is. All you have to do is just like, as long as we build web applications that have already set these values for the users. All they have to know is like, all right, I'm just transferring money from here to a different chain. And a lot of times, when we were building Osmosis, I think we didn't even want to use the term like IBC transfers, because I think, first of all, if you're a first time user to Cosmos, you don't know what IBC is. And then when you're saying transfers, like, oh, I'm just like moving money between my accounts, I don't know what a transfer is. So it's like, what's like the easiest way you could simplify that? We're like, I mean, assuming everyone that has money on a wallet has used an exchange, and every exchange has a way to deposit or withdraw, and that's kind of how we've abstracted. Obviously there's different takes to that, but um in general, I think we've seen a lot better like UX being built by the developers. And I think our goal in Keplr is just kind of enabling developers to build better applications and have to worry less about how the users interacting with um, these transactions, these applications, how they're managing their private keys. And then for the users, it's like um, when the last resort is a CLI, you just don't want to use it. So it's as simple as, all right, I just want to make sure that I'm signing what they're telling me I'm signing, and then all you have to do is just click a button, and next thing you know, your money's traveling through the cosmos, through all these channels that you don't even realize that exist. And that's exactly what we want the interchain to be in the long run. So
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, besides osmosis, what other exciting applications are you guys excited about in the Cosmos ecosystem, and how does like Kepler play a role there?
yeah, so I mean, obviously, I'm pretty excited about Axelar. Uh, and if you guys didn't know, I've been a huge like Dogecoin fan. That's how I got into crypto. So just the fact that like Axelar brings, the ability to bridge a lot of these blockchains that previously weren't very easy to access. These tend to be older blockchains or crypto. But at the same time, just because they're old and they've survived such a long time, there's a legacy to it. And there's a story to what they've been through, and just to be ability for a lot of these tokens to be able to also access the powerful like network effect of IBC is important. And I think we're seeing a lot more DeFi applications being built around IBC. We're also seeing Stargaze and Juno, unlocking things like NFTs. And yeah, I think a lot of these primitives have existed in crypto. What's novel about it is like, what does that look like in the context of the interchain? And we saw in osmosis that even just a simple AMM kind of like being in the interchain has different nuances. It has different impacts on the market. And first of all, when an NFT meets the interchain, what does that look like? When a yield aggregator that does things cross chain, what does that look like? And are there benefits to it? And then obviously there's the kind of very natural network effect of good DeFi applications bringing in more DeFi applications, and a lot of that just happening on the interchain, I think, is extremely exciting. So
Yeah, for sure. And I think, for us, I think one of the most, exciting parts of working with you guys is that because the, Axel network is IBC compatible, right? And we serve as this translation layer from it with other
Mhm.
ecosystems, EVM chains like Bitcoin and so on and so forth, is then we can use the wallet and the power of IBC to connect these very distinct ecosystems, right?
Mhm.
And I think as you guys just flipped the wallet to the mainnet, we were doing some some basic transfers, and effectively, what you can do is you can generate like an address on Axelar and then do an IBC transfer through Keplr to that address and route your packet to like other networks, right?
Mhm.
And in that case, like Keplr serves as this as the wallet that allows you to go not just through the Cosmos ecosystem, but also beyond that as well, which I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, um, I guess I'll ask you this question afterwards, but from our perspective, it's like, I think this whole interchain and IBC kind of ecosystem is, I wouldn't say a complete rejection, but it's definitely deviates a lot from this whole fat protocol thesis, and trying to build very like fat apps that's able to do everything in house. I think kind of the Cosmos and the IBC world kind of take is, it's like there are things that we're good at, but we do realize it's like we're not able to do everything in house. We're not able to, control everything. And if everyone has that mindset of like, oh, we're gonna just monopolize every use cases of crypto um, through our project, I think we're just gonna have to end up with many different standards, and that's not the kind of I think it's good to have competition, but at the same time, it's like when there's just too many things going on, I think it can be overwhelming and chaotic. I think IBC kind of has this take where, it's like, hey, Osmosis is going to work on AMMs, and there's going to be Juno Secret Network who has, their own thesis of how smart contracts work and privacy works. And there's also going to be like application specific lending protocols. And for bridging, it's like it'd be ridiculous if each of these chains have to kind of work on their own bridge, maintain their own bridge. Not only is that just like resources intensive in terms of like human resources, but economically, I think um, when a lot of these like how these bridges are secured are split across many chains, you just kind of end up with many weak links. Whereas for things like osmosis, it's like just the ability for us to kind of focus on building a better DEX, and improving IBC UX, and just being like, all right, we can use Axelar, we can use these like bridges that we don't really have to worry about, and just the fact that like being able to utilize that through IBC is kind of what's powerful about this, like the whole IBC network effect. Um, and I'm sure it's kind of like same for you guys as well, right? Just because if just because of IBC, you do have many different use cases that these Axelar bridge tokens can be utilized in, and there's significant demand, and all of that connection is just done very standardized through IBC. So yeah, I mean, Sergey, do you want to kind of talk about how you guys chose IBC and how you guys kind of came to that conclusion in your thesis as well?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think our goal initially has been to connect very distinct ecosystems in an easier way, and build a platform to make these connections as easy as possible to stand up, right? Within the Cosmos, you have kind of the IBC and the natural way to interact with those chains. With other ecosystems, like within Polkadot, you have your interoperability protocols. Within Avalanche, there's a notion of subnets and so on and so forth. But kind of underneath it, right, like all these different chains still speak very kind of unique language and unique consensus that you have to translate from one to another. And I think for us, when we were starting to build, first of all, we chose to build around the Cosmos SDK because we needed to kind of customize our protocol as much as possible in order to make this integrations with other ecosystems easier. So we needed to customize, the governance model, how read requests are done, how write requests are done, and naturally, kind of the Cosmos SDK was the starting point that allowed us to make all those customizations, and plus, of course, IBC was coming to life, and so that side of the integrations would naturally be very easy for us to facilitate, right? And then, kind of as we're building more and more, we just realized the sort of the translation functionality between the Cosmos chains and other chains through the Axelar network is going to be incredibly powerful, right? If you want to translate from IBC to EVM, like it's one type of translation that you have to do. If you want to go to WASM based chain or Rust, you have to do another translation. If you want to connect Bitcoin, and kind of send that across the requests that you have to make, and you have to have your own finalization rules and gadgets and things like that. So for us, I think it's just the whole flexibility, I think, of the ecosystem to be built, towards the use cases that we targeted, and the vision to just interconnect all these agnostic ecosystems and blockchains is what was very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, I mean, I guess if you don't mind, can you kind of go briefly about how the testnet process has been? What types of networks you've worked with, and then afterwards, maybe kind of briefly talk about how this like mainnet rollout will look like, and what to expect from the community.
Yeah, for sure. The testnet we've been running, for over 6 months at this point. We had thousands of people participate in the testnet. I think we had over 100 validators running nodes and learning how to operate the network, how to build integrations with other chains, and we'll support them. And we had various folks that build like sample applications on top of the network. And more recently, we just announced the rollout of the main network a couple of weeks ago. And so, what effectively that means is that we started production of the blocks on the main network with an initial validator set. And over the coming weeks, we'll be onboarding more validators, switching all the tooling that has been built on the test network, including wallet integration, like dashboards, monitoring tools, sample applications on top of the functionality over the network over the coming months. And in terms of the integrations we've had on the testnet, we've had lots of different connections that we tried out. We had a Bitcoin module that we've been working with. There are integrations with Cosmos chains, of course, through IBC. There are integrations with EVM chains that you can do very easily right now, like including Avalanche, Polygon, like Phantom, and a bunch of others. And kind of the way that we build the network itself is, as opposed to focusing on a single connection, we really build it like as a platform to make building new connections as easy as possible in the ecosystem, right? Just to give you an example, to onboard an EVM chain, assuming the validators can register and vote on the request from it, it's like additional a dozen commands in like 10 minutes on the network for anybody to instantiate a connection, right? So it's like really straightforward. If you look at even centralized exchanges, like they take 4 or 6 months to roll out a connection with another chain, and like we can do it in 10 minutes on a decentralized platform, which is incredibly powerful. And we also exposed all of the building blocks so that others can build connections in an easy way, right? So, if there's a chain that we're not supporting, whatever, Litecoin or something else, and you really want to have an integration, you can reuse all the building blocks that we build, like threshold crypto, multisig, voting gadgets, finalization gadgets, and build those connections in an easy way. So it's really kind of for us has been a goal of building an ecosystem, and I think we've had everyone from dashboard builders to application builders to build around the network and make interoperability and interchain really go mainstream.
Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, I guess, it seems like 2021, we saw a lot of kind of like layer twos go a lot more mainstream. And then, with that, it seems like there's a lot of these like bridges, right? But at the same time, it seems like, I think there's different ways of bridging assets across different blockchains. And I think one thing, I think it is pretty important to note, like Axelar does it differently. I think there's an economic way of bridging things. And then there's also, something that's a lot more cryptographic and I think a lot lower level than what, these smart contract like economic bridges do. Do you think you can kind of go briefly about that? Maybe not super technical for the like less technical listeners, but yeah, just in general.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And in general, you can think about security as you pointed out in one of two ways. There's one, which is security by economics, right? So what is a simple example? Well, I give you a voucher if you want to move your asset from a chain A into a chain B, and then you can use this voucher to like transact in a different blockchain. And if some of us misbehave, then somebody gets punished in an economic way, meaning that maybe there's a bond that I had to put as a collateral, and if I start taking vouchers away from the people, I get slashed and I lose my bond, right? And I think we've seen a few of the good examples. I think TBTC was probably one of the most famous experiments, which didn't really scale because not a lot of people kind of wanted to move these to move their collateral and lock it into this protocol in order to move some other assets from one ecosystem to another. So that's economic security, right? It's like somebody has to put some money up front and they'll get slashed if they misbehave in execution of the protocol one way or another. And our way from the beginning has been to really understand how do other blockchains achieve their security, right? And it's, even though you have incentives, most of the security today is achieved through decentralization, right? So in the Cosmos chains, as an example, even though validators are voting with their stake, most of the stake that they get is actually delegated to them, right? So they're voting with somebody else's stake. And if they misbehave, like they get slashed in the protocol. So directly as a validator, it's actually, not very clear what are your incentives for running the protocol correctly. Right? Most of these chains have very minimal like self-delegation amount, like maybe it's like one atom or one Luna, And security is really achieved through decentralization, right? So it's a large enough set of validators that are maintaining the protocol and running this decentralized system to guarantee security. And that's really been our goal from day one, is to build a platform and a network which is decentralized and remains robust no matter what happens on economic level, prices going up or prices going down. Nobody's going to get liquidated. Nobody's going to lose their assets. And we're going to try to maximize the set of validators that we're going to participate, make the system open, right? So if some validators go down, you can pick up the protocol. You can continue running it and maintain the security through the decentralization aspects, which I believe the only way to continue maintaining the openness and inclusion of the systems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess I'm kind of curious. It's like, with the mainnet rollout, where do you kind of see these Axelar bridged assets kind of landing? Maybe there's a specific order that you kind of have in mind right now, or maybe not. But yeah, if you just kind of have any idea on that.
Yeah, I mean, we want to make liquidity flow as much as possible. I think some good examples of kind of a projects that have been building around Axelar and moving their assets. I think one good example is Terra and the UST distribution. So there was a proposal that Terra has put out there to move UST through the Axelar network to some other EVM compatible chains. So that's definitely going to be an interesting use case, which is using a network for a distribution of an asset. In the other ways, we have EVM based assets that will want to flow into the Cosmos ecosystem. Everything from Ethereum assets to like Avalanche or Polygon. I think Osmosis is definitely one of the most, I think, powerful dexes that's going to be rising in the coming year. And so definitely, we're interested to bring more assets into the Cosmos ecosystem and Osmosis. So yeah, I think it'll be super exciting.
Mm-hmm. And then like my personal kind of like last question was just like, all right, so like um Axelar allows this like very like modular bridging thing. So like you could have a Bitcoin that was bridged through Axelar that ends up in Ethereum, but let's say theoretically you're also able to have Bitcoin that was like you know WBTC that's on Ethereum that ends up in Cosmos, and we're just gonna see a lot of these assets like have these like path dependent. You move it from A to B to C, and then there's this asset that's also Bitcoin that moves from like C to B to A, and things like that. So I guess it's kind of curious if you had any thoughts on like where this whole like with all these chains kind of getting tangled up together. I think from the user's perspective, things can get a little bit messy. Where do you see a lot of this going? And yeah, what can we do as builders of a wallet to kind of alleviate some of that pain? What are some things that you expect us to kind of collaborate on? And yeah, things like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. To be honest, I think the reality is that the users are exposed to these different assets today because we're still talking about bridges, right? And the reality is that I think over the next year, and our goal is to eliminate bridges, right? So meaning that if a user has an interest in asset and they see, an application like Osmosis, they should be able to go ahead and use it no matter where they are in the ecosystem, right? Like go deposit, trade, go withdraw whenever you're done, and do all of that from their wallet without having to go through bridging application, move from one ecosystem to another. All of that has to go away. Um, and so from that perspective, I think what we're going to have to do is build where users don't have to think about paths or specific assets or their versions. And as a chain or as an application, maybe there will be a couple different versions of an asset. I don't expect there will be dozens, but maybe like two or three that are secure and decentralized down the line. And above it, we can either swap between them or provide a unified experience at the application layer where the user doesn't have to understand mechanics of which path this asset took. Did it come directly from Axelar, or did it go to, Ethereum and then through Axelar to Osmosis? So all of those, paths and things like that need to be obfuscated in some sense from the users. And I think, yeah, we're still talking about it because we're still building the core connections, right? But once these connections are done, it's expanded this layer above of SDKs and simple APIs to make it easier to build applications that interact with these ecosystems in a chain agnostic way.
Yeah, and I think that's like the interesting thing where like it feels like crypto kind of goes like full circle again, where like back in the very early days of Bitcoin, it's like no one really. I mean, I guess there's people who are just like running the core Bitcoin client and things like that, but for the very average user, there weren't any client side, user side infrastructure available. So the best choice that you had was stored on a custodian exchange or custodial wallet, and then wallets came and things kind of became pretty decentralized, a lot easier to do self custody, and a lot of the emphasis on self custody, and then less so maybe on like the web app and like how do you abstract things for the user, and then now with this whole like the world just kind of going crazy with the interchain, I feel like we're kind of going full circle and be like, all right, we need to kind of go back and try to decide how do we build a better like web app, even though we're working in crypto. And turns out like that's going to be a very like important thing on like whether if we're ever going to go mainstream with some of these like bridging ideas and like assets across different blockchains. So yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
I mean, I think we have to realize that to solve interoperability, right? It's not a specific kind of destination, and here's one protocol, and like we call it a day. It's a layers, of abstraction that you're going to have to build in order to solve the user experience at the end of the day. As an example, if you look at the web today, right, there is kind of a four core layers of protocols that have been built. Some of them are routing protocols, some of them are delivery protocols, and then there are application layer protocols and SDKs, right, that makes it easy to build like a web application that can communicate across different networks, right, and transfer information from one server to another, no matter where that information came from. And kind of in the blockchain space, we're still like at layer, one or two, where we're building these basic kind of routing protocols and just transmission protocols. And then above it, we have to build these application level protocols and SDK to make simpler applications like multi-chain wallets, right? Like multi-chain dexes. And I think, that's what we're focused more in the coming year at Axelar, and I think that's what's it's going to be really exciting to enable these cross-chain applications.
Yeah, and that's a great analogy, I think, of like building the web right now. Just because I think even building non-crypto applications, like back then you have to just like code all the front end in JavaScript, and now you have all these libraries that make your life easier. So, when you're building interchain applications, like Axelar can be one of these like libraries that just does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and then all you have to do is just really focus on the end product of end product application that you're trying to build, and it just feels like you're interacting with an SDK that lets you use interchain cross-chain assets, and yeah, that's incredibly cool.
Awesome, sounds great. Well, Josh, it was nice chatting with you. I think we're super excited to work with you guys, and I think you guys do an amazing job both at Keplr and Osmosis. So great to be partners with you on this.
Yeah, absolutely, always a pleasure.
All right, then we'll talk later. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks. Bye everyone.